Hi, I'm Rachel Abbasi. Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. As always, thanks for spending time with me.
Friday Eve. Happy Friday Eve. Today, I want to talk about step one for stroke recovery. So we're going to see how this goes. Now, keep in mind that I feel like every topic I talk about can really be applied across the board if you have the willingness to try to apply it in your life. So what I learned in my sobriety program is about practicing the principles in all of our affairs. So when I got sober, I'm approached with this step one. And what I'm looking at today is this workbook that I have. It's called A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps. And it's available on Amazon. This is the workbook, and there's actually a book that goes with it. That is kind of like I guess the 12 and 12, but it applies it to a woman's life. Um, I I love workbooks. I love workbooks. I'm a nerd. This is by Stephanie Covington, PhD. So it's split into sections for each step. So that's what I'm looking at off camera. So when I approached step one in sobriety, we admitted that we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. What I've found, and I've talked about this before, is that after I had my stroke, I didn't realize it, but I was, everything was culminating to put me in like the exact same situation as when I first got sober, where I was approaching this point of unmanageability. I was not willing to admit, I just didn't know that the stroke was serious. And I know that sounds weird, but I, because you couldn't see what was wrong with me. I could only tell people how I was feeling, like what symptoms did I have, what pain did I have. And I could tell what bothered me and what didn't, but I just was dismissing the severity of the issue. So for 2 years, I went back to work and the pain continued to get worse gradually. When I think back, I think, how in the world did I function for 2 years like that? I have no idea. I mean, just just a minute on a screen scrolling and it makes me sick. But it wasn't as bad back then when I first had my stroke. It was like it hurt my head, but I didn't quite have all the other symptoms yet. Like I didn't have sharp pains in my head yet. I didn't quite have the extent of nausea that I have now that I get from looking at things that move or just moving my eyes the way that I do when I talk. Um, so I sometimes say lightheartedly that I broke myself because I just ignored taking care of myself. I ignored the severity of my issue, that my life actually changed forever. So I just kept trying to function normally until I couldn't anymore. And step one in sobriety taught me how to, without knowing it, taught me how to become conscious of my feelings, my behavior, and my effects on other people in sobriety. But obviously I hadn't mastered it yet because I was functioning in pain and having people tell me, Rachel, you got to rest. Rachel, you got to take a break. And I was so bullheaded that I just kept going. The program that I worked with my doctor on was I would work for like 15 minutes and then I would take a 2 hour break. I think in the beginning I would take like a 4 hour break. So I could only look at the computer for about 15 minutes before it was unbearable and I had to step away. And then I needed to rest for 4 hours and then I would do it again. And over time, I gradually started spending a little more time on the computer while still taking a 4 hour break. And then I think I started to become a little less consistent. I just believed wholeheartedly with my heart and my soul, I believed that I was going to get better. I believed that just like anybody gets a headache every day, um, I believed that the headache would just go away. And it never has. It never has gone away. Um, and it not only didn't go away, it got worse and worse and worse. And I tried to explain the headache. Doctors didn't understand it. They tried to give me different medications that none of them worked. Until finally somebody prescribed Emgality, which you have to take like you have to be prescribed like 3 or 4 other pills before insurance will accept or approve Emgality, which is ridiculous, honestly. So I was in pain. I mean, I guess they try to avoid having people be on Emgality, but it was insurance that doesn't approve you. So that means that insurance doesn't want to pay for it, right? Um, so on the outside, I looked like I was still doing everything, like just like before I got sober. Before I got sober, I was still going to work until I wasn't. I was still taking care of my kids. I was still keeping up my appearance to a point. I mean, I felt like I was keeping up my appearance, but when I look now, when I look back at what I looked like back then, I was looking rough. Just looking really rough. Um, so on the outside, I looked fairly intact, but really on the inside, I was falling apart. And the exact same thing happened to me when I reached the point where I needed to admit that my life was unmanageable. I was in so much pain on the inside. It was hidden from people. All I could do was just keep saying, yes, I still have a headache. I could just keep, I gotta rest, I gotta rest, I gotta rest. And until resting didn't do anything for me anymore, where I literally could not even look at the computer. And I know during my podcast episodes I don't look at the screen. That's on purpose. Um, so once once I got to that point where I couldn't look at the screen at all, that's when I felt like I must have broke myself. Like looking back, it's like I was making things worse. And have never recovered from that. So I don't know if I actually did further damage or what happened, but I am worse now than I was when I first had my stroke. So let that be a cautionary tale. Um, so this step one, unbeknownst to me, I don't think I've ever said that before. Um, that was the beginning of learning about being able to be more aware of myself. being able to be more conscious of my feelings. And it took it to a whole new level in stroke recovery, being conscious of my behavior. It almost seems like a sick joke. Like that's what I had to learn in sobriety. And in stroke recovery, I had to be conscious of my behavior in a totally different way. My actions, my moves, my movement, my eye movement. That's really hard. Imagine going through a day, or try it, or even just try 10 minutes and pay attention to how much your eyes move. And when you're talking, when you're walking, when you're cooking, all of those tiny movements is what causes pain in my head. So the only time that I have a reprieve is when I close my eyes. And I kind of get sick of closing my eyes sometimes. So I will just, and I've talked about this, but before, I will just soften my gaze and not move my eyes. And that gives me a little bit of relief as well. Um, so in sobriety, I also learned how to admit powerlessness. And this pain that I developed, this limitation that feels like it's I mean it I don't even know how to say it. I'm at a loss for words. Um, all of the pain and the symptoms and everything occur between my ears, right? Is that ironic? Because in sobriety, we have a thinking problem and it's all happening between our ears. So it's like going through sobriety and practicing step one and admitting powerlessness over alcohol, once again, was a mirror action of admitting powerlessness over my disability. Um, it's astounding to me, really, the similarity that between the two. And that's why I'm writing a book about it, because it's just been so helpful to me to be able to practice the steps in stroke recovery. In this workbook that I'm looking at, it's like it asks about, think about the 6 months immediately before and the book is saying you stop drinking. But when I apply it to stroke recovery, then it's telling me, think about the 6 months immediately before I left my career. Um, and these are the things that I wrote down, like, this is my powerlessness, okay? So if you are in recovery, if you're in denial and you're having a hard time, um, grasping like denial to acceptance. Like, how do I get there? How do I accept this disability? It's go through this exercise. Think about the 6 months immediately before the moment that you're in right now. So this is what I have that happened before I quit my career. One, I was working past midnight on my computer, ignoring the pain. What that means is I went from working 15 minutes and taking 4-hour breaks to 3 months later, only 3 months later, because I was on short-term disability during that time. So I went from working 15 minutes and taking a 4-hour break to working until midnight with my pain just stinging in my head. No wonder I broke myself, you know? I didn't go to family stuff yet. Um, but yet I would torture myself on the computer. Like I was not prioritizing what was important. I knew that it was difficult for me to be in a room full of people, but I also knew that it was difficult for me to be on the computer. I prioritized being able to work before being able to be around loved ones. That's interesting. That is that obsession. Like it seems like I'm always trying to prove that I can do something now that I'm disabled. I don't know if I have a problem with the word disabled. Um, I think that I'm still working through acceptance and admitting that. It's like I tell my psychiatrist that I'm constantly trying to prove what I can do instead of relaxing, instead of relaxing. So the next thing I have is I put down my computer when my husband's around so that he doesn't get frustrated with me. And I still do that. I in private, I will do way more than I'm supposed to and have pain rather than doing any of that in front of somebody because I know better. I know I should know better when I'm alone, but yet I only take full responsible care of myself when other people are around. And that's why I'm in pain a lot because I'm not adhering to my limitations. So it's good. I mean, I'm admitting it. I feel like I can't do that enough. I can't admit enough that I'm I'm breaking the rules. I'm breaking my own rules. Um, Another thing that I was doing was staying up late and then needing to take that 4 hour nap in the middle of the day and not getting better, not minimizing my symptoms. Because I'm alone when I stay up late. And during the day, other folks would know that I'm taking a nap. I have a sharp pain in in the left part of my head. This is ironic because that's telling me I should stop talking. Um, so I'll wrap up early today. These are just examples of how I was not respecting my pain and my disability. And you can see how all of this can correlate to sobriety. I didn't have control over the fact that movement makes me sick and it gives me a headache, as well as light and loud noises. And because I can't control that, I would feel more frustrated. I would feel like I want to control that. It's just like controlled drinking. I want to be able to still drink, but only have, X amount of drinks and stop. Well, I can't do that because I'm an alcoholic. Same thing in stroke recovery with a vestibular disorder. I want to be able to watch TV. I want to be able to look at Instagram and watch funny videos. I can't. Movement makes me sick as well as light. Um, the loud noise, I don't really have a lot of problems with because it's so quiet in my house all the time. But when I go places, it certainly is a different story. Um, anyway, I can't control that part that it hurts to look at movement and I can't just look at movement a little bit and then look away. Like I can't, it seems like any amount is going to hurt. I've tried vestibular therapy. I've tried gradually increasing the amount of movement that I can handle, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Vestibular therapy is does not work for me. The only thing that works is to respect my limitations. And I'm such a busy person and such an excitable person that I'm never gonna be completely, laying around and not doing any, not pushing my limits. But I would like to get to a place, and this is what I can control, where I limit the length of time that I do something. And that doesn't mean that I can go on Instagram. Okay, so my agreement with myself is that, and my psychiatrist, is that I get to go on to Instagram and watch Life with Dookie. Life with Duke. It's one person's Instagram, and I get to watch that, and that's it. So length of time, um, how often, and taking breaks. These are the things that I can control. And I wrote this down years ago. I wrote this down 3 years ago in this book, and I'm still struggling with that. Like, I'm still struggling with what I can control and what I can't control. Um, I I start every day committed to not triggering my head and not pushing myself too far. I understand what my threshold is, but I don't adhere to it when I'm alone. So these are things that I still need to. The reason I'm pausing is because I'm thinking about, like, in sobriety when I was doing step one, and I recognize these this lack of control. I didn't push myself. Like, I knew that I was going to be unhappy if I went to a happy hour. I knew that I was going to be unhappy if I went to a holiday party and everybody was drinking around me. So I didn't go. And if I can try to draw a straight line between that and limiting myself in stroke recovery, that might be beneficial. I'm learning to tell the difference between what I can control and what I can't, but the problem is listening, right? The problem is acceptance. The problem is still acceptance. So we're going to have to work on that. And we're going to stop there. I feel like I just learned a little bit about myself today. So that's always good. And we'll come back tomorrow and continue the conversation about this. So that's all I have. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.